Hello students, this is your English lesson. Today we are going to study unit number 3 with the title After 20 Years from Oxford Reading Circle book 8. So we start our lesson. This is page number 27 from your book. The policeman on the beat moved up the avenue impressively. The impressiveness was habitual and not for show. For spectators were few. The time was barely 10 o'clock at night, but chilly gusts of wind with a taste of rain in them had well nigh de-peopled the streets. Gust, a sudden strong rush of wind, de-peopled to reduce or remove the population of a place. Trying doors as he went, twirling his club with many intricate and artful movements, turning now and then to cast his watchful eye down the pacific thoroughfare. The officer, with his stalwart, loyal form and slight swagger behave in a confident way, made a fine picture of our guardian of peace. The vicinity, the surrounding area, the vicinity was one that kept early hours. Now and then you might see the lights of a cigar store or of an all-night lunch counter, but the majority of the doors belonged to business places that had long since been closed. When about midway of a certain block, the policeman suddenly slowed his walk. In the doorway of a darkened hardware store, a man leaned with an unlighted cigar in his mouth. As the policeman walked up to him, the man spoke up quickly. "It's all right, officer," he said reassuringly. "I'm just waiting for a friend. It's an appointment made 20 years ago. Sound a little funny to you, doesn't it? Well, I will explain if you'd like to make certain it's all straight. About that long ago, there used to be a restaurant where this store stands. Big Joe Brady's restaurant. Until 5 years ago. Until 5 years ago, said the policeman. It was turned down then. The man in the doorway struck a match and lit his cigar. The light showed a pale, square jawed face with keen eyes and a little white scar near his right eyebrow. His scarf pin was a large diamond, oddly set. 20 years ago tonight, said the man, I dined here at Big Joe Brady's with Jimmy Wells, my best chum, and the finest chap in the world. He and I were raised here in New York, just like two brothers together. I was 18 and Jimmy was 20. The next morning, I was to start for the West to make my fortune. You couldn't have dragged Jimmy out of New York. He thought it was the only place on earth. Well, we agreed that night that we would meet here again exactly 20 years from that date and time. No matter what our conditions might be or from what distance we might have to come. We figured that in 20 years each of us ought to have our destiny worked out and our fortunes made, whatever they were going to be. It sounds pretty interesting, said the policeman. Rather a long time between meets, though it seems to me. Haven't you heard from your friends since you left? Well, yes, for a time we corresponded, said the other, but after a year or two we lost track of each other. You see, the West is a pretty big proposition, and I kept hustling around over it pretty lively. But I know Jimmy will meet me here if he's alive, for he always was the truest, staunchest old chap in the world. He will never forget. I came 1,000 miles to stand in this store tonight, and it's worth it if my old partner turns up. The waiting man pulled out a handsome watch, the lids of it set with small diamonds. 3 minutes to 10, he announced. It was exactly 10 o'clock when we parted here at the restaurant door. Did pretty well out west, didn't you? Asked the policeman. You bet. I hope Jimmy has done half as well. He was a kind of plodder, though good fellow as he was. I have had to compete with some of the sharpest wits going to get my pile. A man gets in a groove in New York. Groove, a long, narrow cut. It takes the West to put a razor edge on him. The policeman twirled his club, twirled, twisted, and took a step or two. I will be on my way. Hope your friend comes around all right. Going to call time on him sharp. I should say not, said the other. I will give him half an hour at least. If Jimmy is alive on earth, he will be here by that time. So long, officer. Good night, sir, said the policeman, passing on along his beat, trying doors as he went. There was now a fine, cold drizzle falling, and the wind had risen from its uncertain puffs into a steady blow. The few foot passengers a star in the state of exciting movement. A star in that quarter hurried dismally and silently along with coat collars turned high and pocketed hands. And in the door of the hardware store, the man who had come 1,000 miles to fill an appointment, uncertain almost to unwillingness, with the friend of his youth, smoked his cigar and waited. About 20 minutes he waited, and then a tall man in a long overcoat with collar turned up to his ears hurried across from the opposite side of the street. He went directly to the waiting man. Is that you, Bob? He asked doubtfully. Is that you, Jimmy Wells? Cried the man in the door. Bless my heart! Exclaimed the new arrival, grasping both the other's hands with his own. It's Bob, sure as fate. I was certain I would find you here if you were still in existence. Well, 20 years is a long time. The old gone, Bob? I wish it had lasted so we could have had another dinner there. How has the West treated you, old man? Bully, it has given me everything I asked it for. You have changed lots, Jimmy. I never thought you were so tall by 2 or 3 inches. Oh, I grew a bit after I was 20. Doing well in New York, Jimmy? Moderately. I have a position in one of the city departments. Come on, Bob. We'll go around to a place I know of and have a good long talk about old times. The two men started up the street arm in arm. The man from the west, his egotism enlarged by success, was beginning to outline the history of his career. The other, submerged in his overcoat, listened with interest. At the corner stood a drug store, brilliant and with electric lights. When they came into this glare, each of them turned simultaneously. At the corner stood a drugstore, brilliant with electric lights. When they came into this glare, each of them turned simultaneously to gaze upon the other's face. The man from the west stopped suddenly and released his arm. You're not Jimmy Wells, he snapped. 20 years is a long time, but not long enough to change a man's nose from a Roman to a pug. It, it sometimes changes a good man into a bad one, said the tall man. You have been under arrest for 10 minutes, Silky Bob. Chicago thinks you may have dropped over our way and wires us. She wants to have a chat with you. Going quietly, are you? That's sensible. Now, before we go on to the station, here's a note I was asked to hand you. You may read it here at the window. It's from Patrolman Wells. The man from the west unfolded a little piece of paper, handed him. His hand was steady when he began to read, but it trembled a little by the time he had finished. The note was rather short. Bob, I was at the appointed place on time when you struck the match to light your cigar. I saw it was the face of the man wanted in Chicago. Somehow I couldn't do it myself, so I went around and got a plain clothes man to do the job. Jimmy. Now come to the exercises. A questions. 1. What kind of area was the policeman patrolling? Describe it. Answer. The vicinity was one that kept early hours. Most of the doors belonged to business places that were closed long time back. Only a few shops like cigar stores or all night lunch counters were still open. 2. Why did the man in the doorway start speaking to the policeman? Answer. The man wanted to assure the policeman that he was not a thief or a burglar but a harmless man. 3. What does Bob say about his life in the West compared to Jimmy's in New York? Answer. Bob says that life in the West is very busy and hectic as compared to life in New York. One has to compete with very sharp people, which makes one smarter. Also, there is a lot of money in the West. 4. When did the patrolman recognize Bob and why did he not reveal to him who he was? Answer. The patrolman recognized Bob when Bob struck a match to light his cigar. He did not reveal who he was because he saw that Bob was a criminal wanted by Chicago police. 5. From his speech and behavior, what picture do we get of Bob? Try to give a short character sketch of Bob. Answer. Bob wanted to get rich quick and knew that the West offered a lot of opportunities to do so. He could go to any extremes to make money. He was a good friend, though very proud of himself and his achievements. 6. What lesson can we learn from this story? Answer. We learn that criminal activities are always punished, no matter how clever the criminal is. At times, even a small act can be a clue that can help the criminal get arrested. B. Reference to context. Read these lines from the story, then answer the questions. 1. Sounds a little funny to you, doesn't it? Well, I will explain if you would like to make certain it's all straight. A. Who says these words and to whom? Answer. Bob says this to the patrolman. B. What was it that sounds a little funny? Answer. That he had come to keep an appointment made 20 years ago. C. What is meant by to make certain it's all straight? Answer. To ensure that he was not a thief but an ordinary law abiding man. D. What did the speaker go on to say? Answer. He said that there used to be a restaurant where they stood now, and he and his friend Jimmy Wells had dined there 20 years ago and agreed to meet at the same place, same time 20 years later. 2. I wish it had lasted so we could have had another dinner there. A. Who is speaking to whom? Answer. The plain clothesman says this to Bob. B. What is it that the speaker wishes had lasted? Answer. He means the good time. Bob has been recognized as the criminal and will be arrested soon. His good time is over. C. Where might they have had dinner and why is this not possible now? They might have had dinner at the same restaurant, but things have changed now. The restaurant has been closed and Bob will be arrested soon. See words and meaning. 1. The policeman is referred to a policeman and officer. Which words, which other words or phrases are used to refer to him? Answer is patrolman, guardian of peace, a tall man in a long overcoat, the new arrival. 2. Bob says of Jimmy that he was a kind of plodder. How is this appropriate? Answer is Jimmy Wells has been aptly called a plodder as he is an easygoing man, contented and satisfied with what life has offered him. 3. Bob says a man gets in a groove in New York. It takes the West to put a razor edge on him. What does he mean by this? Explain the words in italics. Italics meanings are: in New York, one goes into a shell as one does not get a lot of opportunities to blossom and prosper. The West, however, makes a man smarter and more competent as he has to compete with the best. 4. The plain clothes man says Chicago thinks you may have dropped over our way and wires us she wants to have a chat with you. Can you think of other things that are referred to as she? Answer is the earth or motherland. 5. Find suitable words in the passage to go with the ones given below. Will your chosen words come before or after these words? A. Dismally, hurried dismally. B. Uncertain, uncertain puffs. C. Simultaneously, turned simultaneously. D. Clothes, funny clothes. E. Store, cigar store. F. Drizzle, cold drizzle. G. Wits, sharp wits. H. all night store. I. Stalwart, stalwart form. 6. Use the following in sentences of your own. A. Big proposition. The officer of the post of manager was a big proposition for Mr. Khan. B. Between meets. A lot has happened in the lives of the two friends between meets. C. Figured. While driving, John figured that it would take him 2 hours to reach his destination. D. Impressiveness. His impressiveness has increased many times over the years. E. Enlarged by success. The doctor has done so well in life that his ego is enlarged by success. D. Can you make sense of these by putting in the correct punctuation? 1. 20 years ago tonight, said the man, I dined here at Big Joe Brady's with Jimmy Wells, my best chum and the finest chap in the world. Students, in the beginning of the sentence, you have to write capital letter, and 20 years ago tonight should be in inverted commas. After that, said the man, you have to put comma, and the next quotation you have to write in inverted commas. I dined here at Big Joe Brady's with Jimmy Wells. After Wells, you have to put comma, my best chum and the finest chap in the world. After this, you have to put full stop and inverted commas. 2. It sometimes changes a good man into a bad one, said the tall man. You have been under arrest for 10 minutes, Silky Bob. Here, in the beginning of the sentence, you have to write first letter, capital I should be capital here. It sometimes changes a good man into a bad one. After that, you have to put comma, and this statement should be in inverted commas as well. Said the tall man, you with inverted commas. After you have to put comma and make concrete form. You have been under arrest for 10 minutes. Put comma, silky, inverted commas, Bob, comma and full stop. E. Discuss and write. 1. Read through the story again and find all the references to light or the lack of it. What part does light play in the story and how is it important? Answer. The time was barely 10 o'clock at night. Now and then you might see the lights of an all night lunch counter. In the doorway of a darkened hardware store, a man leaned. The man in the doorway struck a match and lit his cigar. The light showed a pale, square jawed face with keen eyes. 2. What would you have done had you been in Jimmy's shoes? Would you have acted as he did? The answer is, if I had been in Jimmy's shoes, I have acted as a friend 20 years ago. I would meet him on the appointed place and asked him about his past time and reasons why had he changed into a bad man. Thanks for listening. For new videos, don't forget to subscribe my channel. And if you like my videos, please share and like.